Bylund, University of Missouri, and his paper is The Firm and Strategic Factor Markets, Analyzing the Role of the Firm in the Creation of and Pricing in Factor Markets.
Thank you. This title is, I picked this title from all the alternatives I had. This one was the shortest. Because this one is really descriptive. And I'll try to make this a little bit brief and warm you up. Because I know it's late and you're probably a little bit tired. And after all, I'm just the opening act for Abby anyway. So, let's begin from the beginning. Where it all began. I think I used this one last conference as well. That time I was talking about codes. It's kind of in the picture here too. I'm just going to talk about codes this time, but I am going to talk a little bit about the firm. So let me remind you about the problem here. We all know socialism is impossible, and Mises' argument was not that there is a knowledge problem, but that there are no factor markets in the socialist economy, which means that there can be no economic calculation. There's no way you can estimate your profits, and therefore you don't have any entrepreneurship or investments, stuff like that. So the whole economy just implodes. Unless, of course, there's an external market that you use for prices, or if there's let's say friendly, more market-oriented government like the US giving subsidies to socialist economy. Anyway, so now the way I see this problem is that it's a little bit of a puzzle, this economy, how the market economy works. And there are many pieces to this. And as Austrians, we have most or all of these pieces. The mainstreamers, they have one, I think it's called math. But we do have entrepreneurship, and we know what that is. I mean, bearing uncertainty, working for profits, using whatever opportunities that we see subjectively. We have economic calculation, which is a very Austrian concept, right? We have heterogeneous assets, which is something that the mainstream do not really understand. To them, K is K, which is kind of objectivist in a way. I mean, A is A and K is K. But the thing is that K is not always K. And there are many different kinds of Ks. So, what I claim here is that there could be a missing puzzle here, or a piece of the puzzle. So let's go back a little bit and see what the market is, and I'll try to fill you in a little bit what this missing piece is, and how I see that the solution is to this problem of how the free market works, not how the socialist economy does not work, but actually how the market works. And of course, I owe a great deal to my great advisor, Peter Klein. If you're going to post this online, okay. So, the division of labor is what makes the market glorious. Through dividing up work in different smaller tasks, we can specialize, become more efficient. We can trade. If we all do everything, then we don't trade, really. There's no point in that. And Mises, of course, knew this. He says that mechanization can, and where this can is, I just deleted 3 or 4 sentences, but it still makes sense, can be employed only in a social environment under the division of labor. Every step forward on the road toward the use of more specialized, more refined, and more productive machines requires a further specialization of tasks. So we see here that the factor markets are really at the core of everything. Because here, we see that mechanization is a way toward really, really efficient production in the market. Mechanization cannot occur without capital, right? So without factors and factor markets, what is there? Nothing really. Now let me just point out here that glorious is a value-free term in all this. So it's not a normative statement at all. Anyway, now factor markets. So competition is really the bidding for substitutes that are complementary with the structure that you already have. So we need economic goods that are kind of the same, right? Otherwise, why would we? I mean, you need many of them, right? And they need to be complementary with what you have already. Which means that you need compatibility with the market as it is. So otherwise, there's no point in it. If I make widgets that no one uses, wants to use, or can use, it's no market. There's no point in talking about this at all. Now, the limit of the market, the limit of the division of labor, as Adam Smith wrote, is where the division of labor ends. So the division of labor can go very far, but only to the extent of the market. Now, the way I interpret this is the compatibility. Now, you cannot divide into so small tasks that whatever you do is not compatible with what everybody else does. Right? If I create something that's really, really small, really just a part of what everybody else is doing, there is no market for it. For how are you going to use this thing? How are you going to use this component or this service if there is no market that can actually make use of it in another process that already exists or can easily make into reality? So, as economists, I just needed to show you a graph. So here, I basically say this about compatibility. So this M here represents the market. The market you have for your service or for your product or whatever it is you're doing. Now this capital S here is the market level of specialization, if you will. That's really a weird concept, I know, but if we want this compatibility, we can establish that there is kind of a level of specialization in the market. Now, if you are further down and you do everything yourself, there's no market. Pretty obvious. If you specialize a lot so that you're incompatible, there also is no market. If you're close to the market level, which means that what you're doing is compatible with whoever is interested with what you're doing, there are many buyers and sellers that would be interested in what you're doing. So how does this all fit in the market process? Well, the problem here is, of course, that if we have a level of specialization or division of labor in the market, why would anyone at all go outside of that span where you're compatible with the market? That doesn't really make any sense, right? Because if you do, there is no market for what you're producing, which means there are no profits. There are only losses. And this ties in a little bit with transaction cost and economics, because there may be transaction costs in terms of lost market if you're specializing further than everybody else so that you lose a bit of your market. That would increase your transaction cost. But if you specialize so much that you're incompatible with everybody, there are no transaction costs. That's just stupid. There's nothing there. It's just lost. So we know through Mises that entrepreneurship is the driving force in the market. And I showed you that in the beginning, right? That's one of the pieces of the puzzle. Now the problem here is that entrepreneurship implies novelty in the capital structure. Because the entrepreneur is an innovator of things, innovator of processes, innovator of new combinations of things that already exist, whatever. Now there's nothing saying that this novelty is actually compatible with the market level of specialization. So it could be the case that novelty means that there is no market, and that there is no means for calculation. There's no basis for it, which is a potential problem. I mean, if you would innovate something new, there are plenty of examples where you innovate